Well, speaking of politics, 2016 is right around the corner. Obama has done his 2 terms. Number one, how do you feel about Obama's terms? His presidency.
Deported more people than Bush.
Wait, Obama deported more people than Bush?
Deported more people than Bush.
But didn't he?
Yes, he has the face of helping dreamers, and I think that's positive. I think the fact that Hillary Clinton is trying to come in and co-opt a movement, that the Democratic Party is now trying to come and co-opt the immigration movement, like you've always been there, really? I mean, that's sad. We're talking about the people that I think really deserve attention in this race are the third party candidates, because we're now actually debating ideology. We're not debating what our corporate sponsors want the Republican Party to say or what they want the Democratic Party to say, which is why I want to see candidates from the Libertarian Party and the Green Party be admitted into those debates. You should have a candidate from every party. I mean, if that's what Europe has, then why can't we have that?
Right, well, you never see a third candidate during debates.
Never. The only time we saw that, last time we saw that was when? Ross Perot?
Ah, right.
That Ralph Nader?
The 80s.
Right. 90s. Ralph Nader. And
Ralph Nader's the 90s,
and he was cut out, and Ralph Nader was cut out at the last minute from all those, from the majority of the debates. And Ross Perot snuck in there because he had so much money that they couldn't shut the door on him.
Well, I mean, so a lot of the problem is that we don't have a very strong third candidate right now.
Well, I mean, I think that I liked a lot of things that Dr. Jill Stein had to say from the Green Party. You know, I feel like they are on the right page in terms of supporting immigrants, supporting civil rights. And if you look at it, you find that the Republican and Democratic parties are trying to co-opt certain movements. Like now you have a guy like Rand Paul, who I appreciate what he's doing in terms of pushing that agenda for the Patriot Act to be repealed, but then when it gets remixed into the Freedom Act and it doesn't matter what that was before, then where's the victory? You know, is it a Pyrrhic victory or is it just a victory for show? And then we're supposed to believe what? That now because he did something, the Republican Party is the champion for civil rights in this country? What, are you kidding me? I think that when you look at it, I can't fathom how people will think that just because they criticize someone for drinking the left-wing Kool-Aid, that their mouth isn't full of the right-wing Monsanto milk. You guys are pathetic. I mean, at what point can't we just have an honest discussion about the things that need to happen in this country without people sensationalizing things? Like we'll say, just to finish that one point, we hear people yell and bitch and moan about socialism all the time. What is the police department? Imagine if you had to pay a premium for that service. Imagine paying a premium service for a fire department. Oh, fire's burning. Did you pay your bill? Nope. Can't help you, motherfucker.
Let it burn.
It's socialism, the post office. Oh, socialism. The military. Hey, homie, if you ever been in the military, then you're about as close to the socialist entity as you can possibly be. Well, no disrespect.
I came from a socialism, from a socialist country.
But you came from an empire that you have to understand, Vlad, if you want to talk Russian politics, we can have that discussion. What I laugh about with my Russian friends is that they say, oh yes, communism, but it was really an empire disguised in communism, the same way that the United States is an empire that uses the guise of democracy.
Right.
You know?
But it was still communism, though.
Well,
it was still.
But at the same point,
you know, it was still, everyone was paid across the board. Everyone was assigned jobs. No one. There were no stores. There were just distribution centers. There was a lot of stuff set up, and you know, there's a lot of stuff set up that my family came from that they did not want to live in there anymore.
Right.
No, they were a lot happier. My family, you know, I can't say that I grew up in communism because I was 4 years old when I moved, but my family grew up in communism. They were a whole lot happier in America than they were in Russia.
Well, because
way happier. My whole family, every member who moved, we're talking about like, you know, a dozen members or so. Everyone
well, also,
was way happier.
I mean, come on, dude. You're talking about freezing cold, God knows where. You moved to sunny California. Come on, man.
A lot of them moved to Massachusetts, which is, their winters are about as fucked up as Russia's winters.
You know, my father had a guy who was a professor in Russia, right? And he came to America, and he met my dad while my dad was studying, And he said to my dad took him to a supermarket one time. Guy had never been to America before. And he looked around the supermarket and he said, oh.
I remember that. I remember going to a supermarket for the first time and just going, what the fuck?
And he told my dad, now I know how you beat us. He went up and down the aisles and he showed my father just like this. He goes, look at this. He goes, we have the same thing in Russia. Cereal, wheat and sugar. That's all it is. Right. But in Russia, we have a gray and red box that says, wheat and sugar, cereal, good for you, boom, right? Same thing. But in America, what do you got? You got a colorful box. You got a talking frog. You got a talking tiger. You got a prize in the bottom.
You got 100 different cereals.
They presented their empire to be something much different, and they gave you the illusion of choice. The only choice you really have is between Pepsi and Coke, Vlad. And the reality is that in a society in which everything is made and already preordained, you must have the illusion of choice. You must have the idea that the things that you're doing affect the actual nation, whereas if you do actually affect change, that's when people want to neutralize the amount of power that you actually have. When you see the civil rights leaders, they're assassinated at the height where people say, man, this person's not just talking to Black America anymore. Martin Luther King is now talking to white America, to America. He's talking to every single person in the world. Look at a guy like Fred Hampton, rest in power. Brother Fred Hampton was a Black Panther Party member that there's a new movie coming out called Panthers, Vanguards of the Party, and they have a subsection where they talk about Fred, and they showed him working with really poor white people in Appalachia. And what I saw was that one of these guys was wearing a vest with a Confederate flag on it. And yet Fred was willing to say, hey, I don't fuck about your potential ideas. We're working for poor working white class people to unite with poor working class Black people so that we can make a united front with this group of also Mexican immigrants that's come in. We're going to create a united front for workers and for people who are really down with making sure that we have the protection that we need, that we have the hours that we need, that we're not being abused at the workplace. I mean, when I saw that sort of raw power that he had, I realized, well, damn, now they had to kill him, because God forbid they let someone as charismatic as him be exposed to the entire nation and make people realize that we're one human race. I mean, it's just, it gets to that point. I think, though, that one thing to say, Vlad, that's very important is that Russia took over a lot of things that did not belong to it. What it did to Eastern Europe and what it did to the Caucasus are the same things that America has done to Latin America and the Caribbean. I think that under the guise of pretending they had a more functional system, they presented something that wasn't. I'll give you an example. In Latin America, for years and years, we had military dictatorships, which were the remnants of a post-colonial society, right? And then, little by little, the United States came along and said, hey, you don't have to have these military dictatorships. You can elect your own presidents. No more generalissimo. We can have a president now.
No more Noriega.
But then we realized that this same prognosticator, this same prophet of how the future would end up, this same purpose, the same entity that was promoting democracy was actually installing right-wing dictators as a sort of anti-communist, an anti-communist wall to the influence of leftist politics. And instead, you weren't liberating people. You were creating all of these dictatorships inside these countries and replacing them with people who had been not generalissimo. Now you're the president. Yeah, my nigga, but if you're the president like Trujillo in the Dominican Republic for 40 years, right? Then you're not the president, my man. Come on, and that extends itself to everything. I mean, people could say the same thing about Cuba, and I couldn't argue with them because we'd have to speak realistically about what that society means. The difference is that we're talking about a collective society that says, all right, we're going to use this as a collective means to then use for the people in general versus a society that we pretend to be, which is a capitalistic society. The reality is, Vlad, is that these companies aren't scared of socialism or communism. You know what they're terrified of? Real capitalism. They don't go to countries and set up avenues for other people to compete with them like real capitalism. No, they go to another country and they want to set up a monopoly so they can control the natural resources. That's not capitalism. That's just monopoly and empire. You fucking frauds. You're terrified of real capitalists. You're not scared of communism no more. Who's our biggest political partner? China? The fuck are we terrified of?
Eminem is a king in his own right. He has changed hip hop. Before Eminem, all the white guys you would probably try to say, and I'm not dissing any of them, but besides the Beastie Boys, was kind of dressing black, was kind of trying to be black.
Gucci being the guy that he is, as soon as he would introduce me to somebody else that's big or major or meant something to him, he'll brag about me, but he'll brag the fact that I don't drink, smoke, or cuss, or